Hey pizza delivery people. What is your worst delivery story? 1. Got offered a blowjob by a dude. 2. Chubby woman offered to show me her tits for cashback. 3. Arrived at a home to deliver a pizza and nobody is opening the door. I wait for about 2 minutes and I'm getting ready to leave. Two cop cars pull up to the door and both policemen proceed to put on gloves and one goes to his trunk and pulls out a shotgun. One of them walks up to me and says there won't be any deliveries today. I was working for Pizza Hut and I got to a house right as a Domino's delivery driver got there. We waited together at the door for a while as the customer got her money. She ordered pizza from 2 places at the same time. It was very awkward. I posted earlier but this is a good / weird / different story too. I had a delivery where this dude had 2 dogs. It was hot out and I had both my windows open. Well, I went to go back to my car and both of his dogs had jumped into my car and one was in the back seat and the other was in the front. Both ready to go. I opened my door and they would not leave. I had to drag 2 fully grown big dogs out of my car. He told me that they wanted to go to the lake. To top it off, he tipped me pretty shitty and didn't even help me get the dogs out and the dogs scratched my car. God, I'm so glad I don't do that job anymore. This sounds like a good place to share this experience. So I live in a small town. Pretty innocent here. I was on regular delivery to what was a fairly normal part of the housing in town. As I was arriving I noticed a man on the sidewalk hunched over and I thought to myself, man, he's drunk already and it's just past 4. Just a few houses down from there I parked and made my way to the address. As I was walking up a few cop cars flew by me towards that man and I proceeded to knock while still looking at the cars. When I turned my head, oh so slowly, there was a smear of blood. I scanned the door and farther down there was blood everywhere, pooling down the steps and making a trail to that hunched over man. Immediately after a woman in and of speeds by yelling, "Get the fuck out of there." So I dropped the bag and just booked it down the street. Later on after talking to those officers, more arriving too. Turns out the dude had knocked on the door not even moments before I arrived and the man who answered just stabbed him and ran. That ruined my day for sure. TL. Doctor arrived to a stabbing scene moments after it happened, almost becoming the victim. Wow. So were they waiting for you or did some random knock on the door and take the stabbing for you? Something had happened in the household that made the guy who answered panic, which resulted in that event. I'm no pizza delivery driver, but I used to deliver Chinese food for a takeaway in a pretty rough neighborhood. One delivery was to a block of flats. As I pulled up, I spotted a guy sat on the steps leading to the entrance. He was pawing feverishly at his crotch. Weird, I thought, as I got out and grabbed the food box. As I got closer, I saw that he had pulled his pants down round his thighs. Great, I think. Another drunk weirdo. Then, as I'm slowly walking closer, he pulls out a spoon and a lighter, dumps something into the spoon and holds the flame under the spoon. I'm trying not to stare as he pulls out a syringe and loads it. I'm stood at the door waiting to be buzzed in and see this guy out of the corner of my eye lift up his cock and stick the needle into his balls. Completely oblivious to my presence, I'm buzzed in, deliver the food, and on my way out I see the guy stood in the street shouting at a bush. What the fuck? TL. Dr. Smack. Not even once. I used to work for Pizza Hut when I was in high school, and one day one of the delivery drivers didn't return from a delivery. After 30 minutes the manager tried calling him, with no response. He tried again about 15 minutes later, and a police officer answered the phone to explain what had just happened. Apparently the driver showed up to deliver the pizza, and the guy that answered the door was drunk and violent and ended up throwing the pizza in the driver's face. I think he said the order was wrong or something. The driver had piping hot pizza sauce thrown in his eyes and then he fell down the stairs, breaking his arm. Gotta be that guy's worst delivery ever. Had the job for a week, but still got a gun pulled on me. Sort of. Went out to a house and this guy opens the door and invites me in. He goes to get the money and I'm standing around waiting when he comes back with a pistol and points it at me. I have no clue what to do, and I can't remember what I said, if anything, but his face became very worried. Apparently he just got the gun and was very proud of it. He just wanted to show it to me. He put it away, paid me and gave me a poor tip. I got back in my car and was shaking. My parents didn't believe that story either when I told it to them later that night. I used to work at the CSC, Customer Service Center, for Pizza Hut in the Kansas City metropolitan area. I would take orders for the whole city when someone would call 648-8888. Everything in the computer system was pulled up by telephone number. I received a sad call one day. The person had called in to make an order. There were notes everywhere, only management/high-ups could put in notes like this about that whatever their order was. It was 100% free and to notify the on-staff manager that you had placed the order. Further into the notes I read it was because it was the family of a delivery driver that had been murdered while delivering pizzas. A few incidents spring to mind. The bastards that place their sprinklers in such a way that you can't get to the front door without getting wet, then leave them on when they order. Shitty people who dump an armful of coins on you, unsorted, and then get offended when you count it before leaving. The unwashed shanky woman who used her bra as a purse. Hang on, love. I've got the coins in here somewhere. Then warm coins hit your hand shudder, and finally, naked people. Honestly, it takes 20 minutes for a delivery. It's a small town. Surely you can wait that long to sex/fap. But then you also get attached to the nice regulars. I was sad when 1x family size deal delivered to a house later became two separate orders, 1x large deal to the house and 1x small deal to the local motel. I only delivered pizza for a month of my life in a small town in Canada. My worst story would have to be getting pranked one evening. I was asked to enter the customer's backyard and then asked to enter his detached garage. I obliged, despite having been told by my overprotective mother never to do something like that. I figured I wasn't in any danger as I would stay right next to the screen door. After entering, a shirtless muscle man I didn't see came in and closed the larger door, which in mind trapped me inside. So I'm standing there with pizza, surrounded by 3 men in a garage, and all 3 appear to be high, and there is a large pile of weed on the table to my left. Suddenly, one of the men makes a comment about loosing a bet and proceeds to throw poppers, those tiny explosives, at the moral guy's face and chest. I try to smile the whole time and be polite, mostly to not give them the satisfaction of seeing me pretty freaked out. They were filming me the whole time and turned out to be YouTubers. Here is a video. http://www.youtube.com/watch v=a3qf4i9iagc. Worst part is they didn't tip shit all after this. This isn't necessarily the worst, but it is the most interesting. It was almost like a scene from an 80s college movie. The food part was normal, just a couple of larges. I roll up to the house to which a party is happening inside, and there is a guy passed out and duct taped from ankle to chest to a lawn chair in the front yard. I ring the doorbell and the 17 to 19-year-old answers. He completely forgot they ordered pizza and tells me to get the money from the guy in the lawn chair. So I go up to the guy and I can't wake him up. So I go back to the guy in the house, who then, with a frustrated attitude, grabs a flute and blasts it in the lawn chair guy's ear. After some mumbling, the flute guy goes back inside, and the lawn chair guy grabs money from his pocket with his one free hand and hands me a wad of bills covered in what I really hope is wet silly putty, and says keep the change. I didn't count it then, because I wanted to GTFO. When I counted it back at the restaurant, I end up getting a $43 tip on a $31 bill. Worth it. TL. Doctor, guy duct tap to a lawn chair, gets woken up by a flute and hands me wet and slimy money. More sad than anything, I delivered to a house on a Thursday night, and the girl who answered was probably about 19 or 20. She was also completely drug fucked. She looked like she hadn't showered for about a year. Smelled like it too. Her eyes were really sunken and baggy, like she hadn't slept in a week. Her skin looked greasy from sweat, and she had track marks on her arm. She was just a whole big ball of unattractiveness because she was so stoned. The next night, I got another delivery to the same house. The same girl answered, but this time she wasn't stoned. She'd had a shower I'm guessing a decent night's sleep. And she'd put on a little bit of makeup, just the typical everyday amount for girls. She was fucking gorgeous. One of the best looking women I've ever seen. Try and imagine the difference between Keith Richard now and Keith Richard when he was young. Like that. But a female, and the difference was one day. It was very depressing to see how being hooked on drugs can do that to someone, especially that young. This was just over 15 years ago. Had just left the pizza shop with 3 deliveries. Turned onto the highway. Probably not even 5 minutes later, some crazy fucking boxer shorts runs in front of the car. I'm doing at least 80 km/h. Bang, cleaned him up. He hit the window right in front of me, which cracked everywhere, and pushed in about an inch towards me and rolled over the top of the car. I don't even remember pulling over. Just in too much shock. Not long after, the police turn up and start doing what they have to do. Which of course means they rang my boss. I didn't have a mobile phone at this stage. My boss turned up, scowled at me, and grabbed the pizzas out the back of the car to deliver them. This is at least 40 minutes after I left the shop by now. I went home a few hours later when the police were finished and pretty much collapsed as soon as I got in the door. Luckily my girlfriend was home early from work and helped me to bed. Anyway, the poor bugger I hit copped a lot of broken bones and was in hospital for a long time. He had just fought with his partner and tried to kill himself by running into traffic. It took me a few days to get the skin cleaned off the roof and bonnet. It was stuck on like paint. It also took 2 weeks to get the car fully panel beaten and the front bumper, light and windscreen replaced. I was found to not be at fault while I was still at the scene of the accident. Not that I felt any better about it. The next morning I quit. I was still shaken up, and my boss rang me telling me I should have to pay for the late pizzas as he had to credit the customers. Fucking prick. I never claimed any money off the poor guy I ran over. It cost me a lot to fix the car, and it never felt the same again driving it. My first car, but it didn't feel right to sue him over it. He was in hospital for over 4 months. To me he had been through enough. TL. Doctor, no, I didn't reimburse my asshole boss for the pizzas. There was one time that I delivered to this older man in an apartment complex. He invited me in and told me that his money was on his kitchen counter. He was seated on a recliner and let me know that it was hard for him to move much. I told him that was okay and set the pizza down on his coffee table. I then took the money from the counter and noticed there was $20 more than necessary. I tried to hand him the extra and he told me to keep it. Then asked if I could stay for a minute. Awkwardly, I asked him what he needed and he said, just to talk. He then proceeded to tell me about how he hadn't talked to his only son in 10 years. I listened and tried to tell him maybe he should just call his son up, see how he was, and he very rudely asked me what the hell do I know about anything. I moved to leave, and he suddenly blurted, and I have Lyme disease, and then laughed, as though he were kidding, and were just making a joke about how his life sucked, and on top of it all, he had a debilitating disease. I wasn't sure what to do, so I awkwardly chuckled. He yelled at me, told me it was a serious disease, and told me to get out of his house. I quickly obliged him, tucking my well-earned 20 into my pocket. The next week, he called again. I'll let the new guy take it. TL. Dr. A man gives me $20 and tells me he has Lyme disease and to get the fuck out of his house. In a 2-year span I was offered weed as payment. Asked to buy beer on the way. Accidentally full frontaled by a guy coming out of the shower. Offered a swim in a pool, even a bathing suit. 2. Bit by mean little chihuahuas. Given parking tickets and speeding tickets. Delivered to the local strip club approximately 250 times and was off 10 times flashed. Most strippers are also great tippers. And last but not least, crashed head on into a tree after falling asleep at the wheel. Totaling Biselica and walking away without injury despite no seatbelt. Airbag saved my life. Now I'm a network admin and my life is boring as hell. But I get to Reddit all day, so that's something. I scared the hell out of a pizza delivery guy about 12 years ago. My wife and I were going to a costume party that night. So I was dressed up like an inbred in these weird shorts, a sideways baseball cap, and those Billy Bob teeth that make you look a little like a Neanderthal. It was supposed to be a funny costume, but if you didn't know it was a joke, I guess it could be a little frightening too because I'm also kind of a big guy. So the doorbell rings with our pizza, and I open door. I say nothing, and the guy stares at me holding the pizza and not knowing what to think. I then start jumping up and down, yelling "Pizza's here," really loudly, and then go into this happy dance all over our living room. My wife then comes out from the back and politely pays and thanks him for the pizza, while the whole time, while I'm jumping up and down screaming "Pizza's here," the guy was totally shocked. But we gave him a nice tip.